Earlier this year, Magic announced that they would be collaborating with Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is one of my favorite shows that I grew up watching. And earlier this week, we got to see the first official look at Avatar: The Last Airbender as a set and learn about what mechanics like water bending, earth bending, fire bending, and air bending do, which was really exciting for me. However, out of all of the members of the gang, I believe there was one that managed to stand out above the others. But the highlight of the gang is Toph, the first Metalbender. Sure, you saw it as clear as I did, but non-token artifacts are now lands, basically, except they don't tap for mana, but they do trigger landfalls, and Earthbend 2 allows you to animate target lands, put 2/1/1 counters on them, and when they die or are exiled, they return to the battlefield tapped. So today I wanted to give you some budget options that are already available that you can use to get big value out of your Earthbending. The first choice is a recent add of Nutrient Block from Edge of Eternities. It is a 1-cost artifact food that has Indestructible and tapping to sack it, you gain 3 life, but it also has, when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. Anything with card draw attached to it is going to be fantastic with Earthbending, alongside the fact that it's indestructible, so it's basically, in a Toph deck, an indestructible artifact land that you can keep on growing and growing every turn if you want to win through combat damage. It adds like a secondary win con, which I think is super cool in the deck. And frankly, again, standard legal, so you can try a brew in Brawl / standard. So, yeah. Next up, we have the slightly harder to cast Phoenix Down, which is 1 white mana, and for 1 a white and tapping it, you can exile it to return a target creature value with mana value 4 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, or you can exile target skeleton, spirit, or zombie. But realistically, you're always going to be using this to return low-value creatures from your graveyard to the battlefield, likely your value pieces in this deck, which can be things like Reckless Fireweaver, which is a known artifact staple. Sabotender recently got added, which when a land control, it has landfall that basically does the Reckless Fireweaver trigger. So yeah, works really well in Toph deck when all of your artifacts are also lands. Also, it can help you deal with those pesky mono red decks. Another banner in my book is the Carrot Cake, 1 and a white for an artifact food. When it enters and when you sack it, you create a 1/1 white rabbit and scry 1. And for 2 and tapping it, you can sack it to gain 3 life. I mean, it's just a better food. I don't know what to say. And imagine looping this with Toph, and technically, it doesn't specify that you have to sack it with its sack ability that it has on the card, so if you can find another way to sack an artifact, this card is going to generate you so much value. Although this one breaks my budget rules, I feel like Radiant Lotus is too powerful to not include as the best sack outlet in Standard right now for mass sacking artifacts, which means it can also be played in Brawl, but I mean, if you get to turn 6 and are able to just sack your entire board's worth of artifacts, generate a insane amount of mana, and hopefully you have your artifacts recurring so you can get a full new hand of cards, because all of your artifacts, when they enter, draw a card. And like many things in Aether Drift, despite this being a mythic, it is nearly worthless, being at about $3. And yeah, there's no shortage of them. I mean, Aether Drift was kind of a bust of a set, so you can pick this up for relatively cheap in terms of mythics. $3 isn't the worst. But that's not all for standard legal cards. We've got Instant Ramen, a 2-cost artifact food with flash that when it enters, you draw a card. And for 2 and tapping, sack it, you gain 3 life, the usual food thing. But again, very good card. When it enters, you draw a card. If you decide to Earthbend 2 this to life, then if you sack it in response, I don't know, it comes back to the battlefield, you get to draw another card. I don't know, it's just so good. This one partially comes from my urge to make Aether Drift work. It is the Starting Column, which is a 3-cost artifact, which has Start Your Engines, which I don't want to get into, but you can tap it to add a mana of any color, and at max speed you can sack it and tap it to draw 2 cards, then discard a card. Already, that's fantastic draw. The downside being you have to get to max speed, but hopefully if you're swinging every turn, then you can get up to max speed fairly easily, and then this artifact just becomes fantastic. Now I think we're going to talk about some of the budget cards that you could add to a commander deck, and I think there's one card that, again, it kind of borderlines the budget territory, but it's so powerful I think you're going to really want to include it, that being Zurin Orb. Zerrin Orb is a zero-cost artifact that when you sack a land, you gain 2 life. You're not really playing it for the effect, you're just playing it for that instant speed, sack a land, gain life. Mostly, again, the sack a land. You need sack outlets in this deck, I think, if you want it to run as well as possible, and Zerrin Orb is just the cheapest you can get, and the most efficient, considering you can do it at instant speed, you don't have to tap it, so you could just wipe your entire board if you needed to, and if you have more than 1 land earthbended at the moment, you're going to get them all back, get all of those triggers back on the stack, and if not, then, you can still get value from your things by sacking them, because, again, all of your non-token artifacts are lands. Now, this is the first hidden gem, in quotes, that I think this deck is going to utilize better than any other, and that is Terra Eternal, a 3-cost, 2 and a white enchantment from Worldwake that makes all of your lands indestructible. It's an enchantment, of course, so it's going to stay on the board. Make all of your artifacts, at least non-token artifacts, indestructible as well, because they are lands in addition. And it's just going to totally power up your board. And if you really just want to swing, throw in some bigger, stronger artifacts, have them not worry about dying to combat, you're going to want to run this. So you're going to notice a lot of my choices have card draw attached to them because I have blue flowing through my veins, but yeah, my next card is Ichor Wellspring, which is a 2-mana artifact that has been printed an innumerable number of times, but when it enters the battlefield or is put in the graveyard from the battlefield, you draw a card. So you're going to get a card draw when it enters. When you sack it, you're going to get another card draw, and then when it enters again, back onto the battlefield tapped, again, another card draw. This is just so fantastic. I mean, 3 cards for 2 mana, you can't beat that rate. It's, at least, you can't beat it since Alpha. Another card that I think will really get Toph up and running will be the Elsewhere Flask, which is a 2-cost artifact that when it comes into play, again, it replaces itself, you draw a card, and you can sack it to choose a basic land type, and each land you control becomes that type until the end of turn. So I think this is going to be slept on in Toph, but you have to keep in mind that all of your artifacts are going to be lands, at least non-token artifacts. However, they don't actually tap for mana. This is going to give your lands a basic land type, which is going to allow for them to tap for mana, which is just going to make them generally a lot more useful. It's going to spike your mana curve up super high and allow for you to do some explosive turns depending on how you line it up. I think this is going to be almost the equivalent of a finisher, but yeah, it's going to be really cool, so try it out. I decided to save some meme cards for last because I just felt bad about sharing them, but I think I gotta give you guys something to work with. So, the first one of the meme cards is actually one that was printed very recently, being the Dauntless Scrapbot. The Dauntless Scrapbot is a 3-mana artifact creature robot that when it enters, exile each opponent's graveyard, and you create a lander token. This card hoses any graveyard deck and is just going to, I don't know, it's going to bury them. And frankly, I think every deck at this point in Commander has a little bit of graveyard recursion, something they can do with cards in their graveyard. So by playing this, it's going to make you an enemy. A lot of enemies. This last pick is if you want to go nuclear on your table. I think it's really mean, but if that's what your table does, then go for it. It is Boom Pile, a 4-cost artifact that you tap, and then flip a coin. If you win the flip, destroy all non-land permanents. Notably, Boom Pile is going to be a permanent, and if you have Terra Eternal out, all of your lands are indestructible. However, regardless, it targets non-land permanents. Boom Pile is a permanent, it wouldn't get destroyed. And so are all your artifacts. So if you're playing Artifact Toph, the only thing that's going to get destroyed is Toph. And, just play her from the command zone. It's not hard to access her. And you can just loop that over and over again, as many times as you want. I think it's truly too heinous for me, but maybe for you it works. Those are some fun budget options for Toph. I'm really excited for Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I hope you are too. Tell me, what set are you excited for most out of the next 2 coming up, Spider-Man or Avatar? Or are you just skipping them both? They're pretty pricey, so I wouldn't blame you. But that's all I've got for today. See ya. Bye.